Great. Well, I will call the meeting to order. Bobby, I'm in Cashiers, North Carolina, and it's raining, and the kids are inside, and so if there's too much background music, I'll ask you to take over, and I'll go on mute. But we'll give it a try. Jody says it's appropriate for me to chair the meeting, so let us begin with a time of reflection, please. Thank you very much. Are there any introductions that need to be made?
No, sir.
Okay, then can we get a motion to adopt the agenda of the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're good to go. Tom Wertzema, can you give us a safety moment and briefing, please?
Yes, Chair Baker. Thanks, Chair Baker and members of the board. My name is Thomas Wertzema. I'm the Director of Customer Field and Meter Services here at JEA. My team is responsible for the installation, repair, and maintenance of the electric and water meters in the JEA service territory. Before we have our safety moment today, let's take a minute to recall that in the event of emergency, to make sure to call 911 and to alert others. If the emergency requires an evacuation, use the stairwells, not the elevator. For those in the T19 meeting area, the designated assembly location will be the Baptist parking lot located at the corner of Ashley and Main Street. Make sure to pair up with your safety partner, which is the person to your right, and always be cognizant of the potential for trip hazards. Lastly, please remember to keep your cell phones on silent, your laptops on mute, but not actively speaking during today's board meeting. In today's safety moment, we'll talk about a disaster supply kit checklist. While we hope for the best in the event of emergency, we understand that success comes from preparation. It is highly encouraged for all individuals to have a checklist to prepare for a major storm event. Items to be included in your checklist is at least 7 days supplies, including food, water, medicine, first aid kit, batteries, and supplies for your pet. Adequately stocked supplies will better prepare our families and ourselves during this hurricane season. The list shown here can be found at the Florida Division of Emergency Management website, which is listed below. As a JEA employee, a checklist like this is very important as they ensure that our families are prepared as we make ourselves ready to go back to work for the restoration process. In addition to a good checklist, it's also important to know if you're in a flood evacuation zone and to know your evacuation route. For additional information, please go to www.floridadisaster.org. Thank you, Chair Baker and members of the board.
Thank you, Tom. Is Councilwoman DeFore there to give us an update on the council liaison?
Hey, Chair Baker, I am here. Good morning, everyone. Just briefly, first of all, I want to thank everyone for having me as the liaison with the City Council. That was a tremendous honor for me to work with you all. Going forward, you'll be working with Michael Boylan, who is exceptional. You'll enjoy working with him as well. Other news, Sam Newby is our new president of the council, and Terrence Freeman is our vice president. We'll have a lot more development deals that are coming our way where I know we'll be involved with you at JEA going forward. You will always have me as your friend. So if you ever need to reach out to me, you know you have a supporter of me with the City Council. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just want to make a quick statement. Thanks for all your work on our behalf, Randy.
Well, thank you, Bobby.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Thank you for your guidance and your wise counsel. You've been wonderful during this period of, I'll call it transition. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. I think we all feel strongly, and we will miss you, I promise. Michael will be a great liaison, but nobody will be as good as you. So thank you so much. Can we have, are there any comments from the public?
There's nothing, no emails and no one in the room.
Okay, well, I'll take that as no. Jay, would you give us your report?
Well, Chair Baker, I'm sorry, but we still need to, because this is a hybrid meeting and we have folks online, just for Landon to see if there's anyone online for public comment.
Thank you, Jody.
Thank you. This is Landon. For those that have joined us via WebEx today for this virtual meeting, now is your time for public comments. Within the WebEx control panel for the participants, if you look to the right of your name, you will see a raised hand option. If you choose that option, it will let me know that you like to be recognized to speak. Also, we have enabled the chat feature as well. If your audio is not working or you prefer to type out your public comment, the chat feature located on the right side of the screen is also available. And I will give everybody a few seconds to notify me if you'd like to be notified. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to y'all. Thank you.
Thanks, Landon. Jay, could you give us your report, please, sir?
I will. Thank you very much to Chair Baker, to the board. Appreciate the service that you are doing. I probably should skip this part, but I might be a little bit tired this morning because NC State won the second round of the NCAA baseball tournament last night. I think I can make it through okay. But we need to focus on these important things sometimes. It has been a privilege, and it is a privilege to watch the people of JEA to live out our mission for the time that I've been here, the mission of improving lives and building community. I want to thank the board, the council, and really the community and the JEA team for making it true whenever I say that I love what I do. Over the past several months, we've been shaping our strategic direction. We've spent time together discussing our mission and vision, and we've also firmed up our core values. Safety. We put the physical and emotional well-being of people first, both at and away from the workplace. Respect. We treat others with courtesy and respect, seeking diverse perspectives and helping to bring out the best in everyone. Integrity. We place the highest standard on ethics, personal responsibility, so that we will be worthy of the trust our customers and colleagues place in us. Our strategic focus areas of developing an unbeatable team, delivering business excellence so that we can earn customer loyalty aren't new. In fact, it's because we've done this for over 125 years, serving this community, but it has a renewed focus for us. In our July meeting, we're going to spend some time discussing those strategic focus areas and the actions that we're going to work on in the next 2 to 3 to 5 years to support that. We really are improving lives, building community, and we will be the best utility in the nation. When we talk about developing an unbeatable team, some folks have interpreted that as if we don't already have one, and that's just not true. We continue building on the strength of each person that works here each day, and we stand on the shoulders of those that have come before us. We celebrate those that have been part of JEA and others that have taught us, like Paul McElroy, who this morning at the National Conference of the American Public Power Association in Orlando will be presented the Mark Crisson Leadership and Managerial Excellence Award. It's an award that recognizes leaders who bring their organizations to new levels of excellence, lead by example, and inspire their employees and staff to improve processes, services, and operations. And he's very deserving of this. With more than 17 years at JEA, he furthered our financial stability, operational excellence, customer focus, and inspired not just those of us in Northeast Florida and at JEA to be better, but really the utility industry at large. Our congratulations go out to him today, and we appreciate the inspiration he continues to bring to us. That announcement could not be released until they did it, and either they did it or they're about to right now. And that is
You're in big trouble.
Part of the reason that Jody is not here today. I appreciate that we have several folks from JEA there in support of Paul and the Public Power Association. Last month at the board, you all adopted a resolution encouraging the continuation of a diverse board makeup. And this action, really this focus by the board, makes me proud to be part of JEA team as we continue down the path of building an inclusive culture from the board level all the way through the organization. I've given you updates in the past couple of months on where we are with leadership team roles. We're still on track to name the full leadership team by July, the end of July. We're getting close. Last week, I was announced that Ted Phillips will be joining us as the new Chief Financial Officer. Ted comes to us with a lot of experience, and I worked with him in North Carolina and in Huntsville. And I couldn't be more excited for him to get here, to be here, because he lives and breathes our values, and I'm excited for him to be part of the team. He'll be here in August. I'm also pleased to announce today that the Office of General Counsel of the city has hired and named a new Chief Legal Counsel for JEA. Regina Ross will join us at the end of July. Regina is currently the Deputy County Attorney for St. Johns County, where she's worked as a government lawyer for 14 years. She's board certified in city, county, and local government law, and she got her undergrad degree at University of Florida and a law degree from Penn State. So I'm excited to have the next few steps in our team being built. We're also serving the community to improve lives, but not just in our day-to-day normal activities where we're providing foundational services to the community, but it's also the volunteer spirit that the people at JEA have. We've held virtual activities over the last 18 months with communities and schools, the Arc of Jacksonville. We've helped at several outdoor events, including St. Johns River Cleanup Day. And through our ambassadors program, 15 of our folks served as mentors for high school students. And this is just a fraction of what we do every day to improve lives and help live out our mission. We also continue to focus on the safety and well-being of our teammates. The pandemic becomes something that I'm glad we're putting in the rearview mirror. We'll continue to monitor COVID and be sure that we line up our policies and procedures appropriately. You've heard me discuss our approach going forward of our work from wherever you can do your job best over the past couple of months. There are really two reasons to work from the office: purpose or preference. And we're continuing to answer questions, develop policies to be sure that we're productive and that we are the best we can be. We're also making this adjustment now because we're changing and moving into a new building. That new building is making progress. If you've been by it recently, it comes further and is getting built more. And we're excited about that opportunity. And I'd like to show a video celebrating the progress that we're making on that new building now.
This beam will go into the building and be right at the heart and soul of it, and to have the opportunity to be part and parcel of this project is a real treat.
It's been a long time coming.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. This has served us well, but it's time, just like the organization, to move forward. It's time for the building to move forward with us.
Yeah, I think it's just outstanding. I think it represents the commitment that JEA has to the community, and more importantly, our commitment to downtown. You know, we could have built anywhere, right?
Brand new installation, brand new substations. Some of the guys would write something, sometimes in the concrete and everything. And years later, when we would remove that piece of equipment because it came to the end of its life, we'd pull things out and then we'd see somebody's name in 1972, or somebody who had put it there when they were very young, and now they're about to retire. And it was pretty neat. It was kind of like a time capsule.
This is new beginnings. I mean, this is a new start, a revamp of things to come. I'm just excited about the new season for JEA. I'm just glad that I'm here to be a part of that.
It's exciting to watch that transition happen. Thank you for the people that put the video together, the team that is working to complete that building and make us the best utility we can be. Last month, we heard more from the public. Today, no public comment, but last month, we heard from representatives of St. John's River Water Management District and some of the representatives of Keystone Heights. People from Keystone Heights were expressing their concerns and asking JEA to support the Keystone Lakes environmental projects. And we do appreciate their willingness to be here, to speak up, and we do support the projects. I'm excited about the progress that we're making with St. John's River Water Management District and hope that we will get to a good resolution where the funding price is in the right place for us to move forward with that. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the contributions of Council Member Randy DeFore. We're certainly grateful of your service as the JEA's council liaison over what I think was called an interesting time. It certainly was an interesting time, and it's possible that we should have given you this at the beginning of your time to help you. And I don't know how to do this virtually, so we'll get this to you sometime, but we have got a JEA hard hat to give you that might have come in handy at the beginning, especially of your time with us. So thank you for your service. We appreciate what you've done and look forward to continuing to work with you on the council. I'd also like to welcome Councilmember Michael Boland, who will be our board liaison beginning in July. We look forward to working with you as we move forward. I don't know if you noticed it, but I said in my last email that I tend to complain when it's cold. I complain when it's hot. Summer's here. Temperatures are rising. That means a couple of things. One is we encourage our folks that are in the field to stay safe, and I'm going to try that again, to be safe whenever they're out there and stay hydrated. It also means our customers are using more electricity and more water to keep their lawns green. As a result, their utility bills can be higher. We encourage customers to enroll to receive alerts when their usage is significantly higher than the norm. We're now performing the free in-home energy audits again after the break we took with the COVID restrictions. Later this morning, we will be reviewing, and you will be reviewing, proposed rates and fees. I'm proud of the work the JEA team has done that results in a neutral impact on our residential electric bills. I'm also pleased with the efforts that many members of the team continue to make to mitigate the additional cost and pressure resulting from the purchase power agreement associated with Plant Vogtle. So for the first time in 15 years, we'll be proposing an increased water and sewer capacity fees that, even though have some impact on builders and developers in the community, they're reasonably phased in and will help us absorb additional costs more gradually. In the consent agenda today, we are asking you to approve next fiscal year's budget. The budget includes rates and fees that we will discuss at the public hearing in August. We'll also cover later in today's agenda the details around delays and concerns with Plant Vogtle. The targeted in-service date for Unit 3 has shifted from November to January. That's the most recent shift that reports from Southern Company give us. What you'll hear today is that the shift is more likely to be 3 to 6 months past that. Each month cost about $8 million. We have about $2.9 billion of total cost in the project at this point. We will stay engaged with the Municipal Electric Authority of Georgia as the project continues and try to continue to push for completion in the best, safest, and most reasonable way possible. On the long haul, this is going to be a good project for us as it has low fuel cost and no carbon emissions. Septic tank phase-out program. We've held pre-construction meetings with the residents in the next areas that are going to be done. The council has approved $100 million to begin planning for the following next area, which is Riverview, but also we will begin planning for longer term than that. We presented at the Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee of Council last week to talk about different alternatives for serving technology to serve these areas. The problem areas of septic tanks currently have an estimated cost of just over $1 billion. The solutions that we offered make that cost something in the $750 million range. So it is not some sort of magic solution to this. It's still very, very expensive, and the costs are likely to increase. We'll make the best determination on each area as we get to them on what technology we should use. We're also beginning to develop a plan to start design of phases and subdivisions earlier. We've been waiting until there's funding in place, and now we'll start the design so that once funding is in place, we'll be more prepared to go more quickly to solve this problem over time. And finally today, I want to take a moment to recognize and remember a line worker from our neighboring utility, Clay Electric. Ziggy Ziegenfelder passed away last week while working in a storm event. We offer support to Mr. Ziegenfelder's family, his coworkers, and the Clay Electric family. It's a terrible reminder of the dangerous jobs that we do in all of our areas every day. It's an innate danger, the jobs that we have, and it's why we focus on safety, both physical and emotional, and why that's a key core value for JEA. I'm proud to be a part of this team. I'm excited to be part of Jacksonville community. I appreciate the service that you all provide to the community, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have today. Thank you very much.
I want to just make one statement, Jay, is that your leadership from the start with the financial process and Joe Afrano's leadership through this process while you were looking for a CFO, both you and Joe have done a fabulous job, and excited to get the new CFO on board, and the team he'll inherit is fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no others, thank you very much, Jay. I really appreciate you recognizing Paul McElroy. Certainly, the city of Jacksonville owes him a great long-term debt, and this board in particular really owes him one, and we're so proud of his recognition. And we welcome Ted Phillips and Regina Ross to the team and look forward to meeting and working with them. I think we can now go to the consent agenda. There are two items. First is the board meeting minutes of May 25th. Can we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? In the fiscal 2022 budget, we reviewed this at several meetings, chewed, spit out, and redid, and I think we've got a very good product. But can we get a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have a budget. James Kipp, can you give us our monthly performance update?
So, good morning, everyone. Chairman Baker, board members. My name is Bob Kipp. I'm the Senior Director of Generation, responsible for the operation and maintenance of the JEA generation fleet. This morning, I'm going to walk you through the May updated scorecard results. Let's start with safety. Through May, our year-to-date recordable incident rate remains historically low at 0.91%. This puts us well below the industry average of 3%. On the customer satisfaction measures, even though we will receive the results for wave 3 of the residential study this month, we are currently below the targets and will remain that way for both the residential and commercial goals. Based on our current level, unfortunately, we have no chance to achieve either measure this fiscal year. With the environmental compliance permit exceedance goal, during the month of May, we had no new permit exceedances. This keeps our current year-to-date total at 1 and leaves the year-end forecast as still achieving the goal of less than 4 for the year. For the sales goals, the electric sales are currently exceeding the target, up approximately 1.8% year-to-date over the fiscal year 20 mark. Water sales, even though they posted a solid month for May, are still down 4.16% year-to-date to the target. This is, however, an improvement over last month where we were down 4.3% to the target. Looking at the revenue goal, we are currently exceeding the overall target, with revenue from the electric side up $39 million, driven by a customer fuel credit and higher unit sales, but down slightly on the water side by $2.5 million due to the lower unit sales. In regard to the expenses, both the O&M and capital expense goals are currently projected to meet or exceed target. The O&M expenses are forecasted to come in under target by approximately $58 million, whereas the capital expenses are forecast to be under target by approximately $93 million. Fuel expenses, though, are still projected to come in above our goal for the year by $3.11 per megawatt hour. This does, however, reflect an overall improvement of 1.8% in the current year-end projection. On our cost measures, all three cost goals, the electric, water, and wastewater, are forecast to end the year favorably, exceeding the cost control targets for each area. And finally, to the reliability goals. Overall, the reliability of the electric system is performing as planned. The one exception is the equivalent forced outage rate goal. The increase in this month's E4 number is primarily due to an extended forced outage on Northside Unit 2. The forced outage was caused by a breach of a boiler door that allowed molten ash to flow out and onto adjacent control equipment. This event accounted for approximately 161,000 lost megawatt hours of generation during the month. Due to this forced outage, the updated best possible year-to-date outcome is now projected at 2.8%, exceeding the annual target of 2.5%. As a follow-up, I'd just like to mention, it is my area, that the Northside Operations and Maintenance team did an outstanding job reacting to this event, as well as reviewing the root cause of the incident, formulating proactive steps to reduce the risk of this type of incident from occurring again. In regard to water reliability, 104 customers were impacted by unplanned water outages in May. While we always strive for zero customer impact, this monthly number made May our second lowest monthly total so far this year. Based on the current results of all these goals, our pay for performance is projected at 3.3% of base salaries. That concludes the May performance update. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to try to answer them.
Questions of Bob?
I will say that we select who's going to do these presentations before the events occur. And so Bob just got lucky to have that less than good news in his report. But I appreciate as he said, the response. Because there's two things. What do we do to keep things from happening? And how do we respond when they do? And I think they did an excellent job of responding. And now we'll take some action so that it doesn't happen again. So thank you, Bob, for you and your team for the response to that event.
Thanks.
And as promised to our city council members who requested it, we have disclosed in our budget what our anticipated pay for performance number would be for the coming year.
Yes.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate your report and your performance. Can we have the rates and fees update from Julie Crawford?
Good morning, Chair Baker and board members. Today I will be proposing rate and fee adjustments for fiscal year 2022. There are multiple items we are recommending, and I will cover the water and sewer adjustments first, then the electric recommendations, and then we will discuss timeline and next steps. More specifically, we are recommending changes to plant capacity fees, tap and meter fees, and large commercial water rates, in addition to administrative tariff changes like extending the backflow prevention program to commercial customers and refining language regarding fire protection. There are also minor changes to language around line extension fees, and staff has plans to explore these fees further with stakeholders to create a clear policy around applicability. We will address electric energy rates as well as extend the current economic development programs. All of these changes are identified in the red line tariffs in your materials. All right, first, water and sewer. The first recommendation pertains to plant capacity fees, which are one-time fees that recover the cost of capacity expansion. As was presented within the fiscal year 22 budget, a large part of our capital plan is driven by growth and providing additional water and sewer capacity. When evaluating the cost of these projects against current fees, the discrepancy is apparent. The calculated cost per gallon of water is $4.68 compared to the current fee of 97 cents, and the cost per gallon of sewer is $25.57 compared to the current fee of $3.64. When applied to a 3/4 inch residential service, the recommended fees total $1,989 for water and $5,114 for sewer. The costs of capacity are significantly higher than current fees, partially due to the fact that the fees have remained unchanged for over 15 years. While the goal going forward is to regularly evaluate the cost of capacity and adjust fees when necessary, we're also recommending a phase-in plan to allow developers and builders to absorb these costs gradually. The table illustrates a biannual adjustment for 2 years starting October 1st. The additional revenue collected will go to the capacity fund to be used for growth-related projects. This phase-in approach is reflected within the tariff, providing staff the ability to adjust the fees within the proposed timetable within your August board approval. This chart reflects JEA's current fees and the proposed increases in relation to other Florida utilities. The amounts shown include the current line extension growth capacity charge and reflect the total fee for a 3/4 inch residential service with irrigation. This chart does not take into account the potential increases in peer fees or areas that do not have extensive growth, therefore less need to update fees. This comparison also does not take impact fees into account, which varies greatly by location. Should the JEA placement in the benchmark continue to be a concern as we are moving through the phases, we will reevaluate the increases to make sure they are reasonable in comparison to others, and we can adjust at that time. Similar to the cost of capacity, the cost to tap a line and set a meter has increased over the years. We recommend updating these fees to cover cost. The recommended fees for a 3/4 inch service is illustrated in the table, and the recommended fees for all sizes are in the supplemental materials. Currently, the water rates for commercial customers are delineated between under 10-inch meters and 10-inch meters and higher. The cost per 1,000 gallons of water is 25 cents less for the larger meters. This discount is not in line with the cost of water and does not encourage conservation, so we are recommending setting the rate equal to the rate per 1,000 gallons for the smaller meters at $1.49 per kgal. All right, moving on to the electric recommendations. The need for electric rate increases has been mentioned in the previous meetings, mainly driven by the power purchase agreement with MEAG for Plant Vogtle. While other costs are forecasted to have slight increases over the 5-year horizon, the MEAG payment is significant, and rate increases are necessary to cover the cost and to maintain financial integrity. Vogtle Unit 3 was originally projected to come online in 2016. The delay in commercial operation has led to an over $900 million increase to JEA in total, approximately $90 million more in fuel costs during the delayed period, and adjustments to generation planning to make up for the 200 megawatts. Anticipating this large expense, JEA executed several strategies to mitigate rate increases, like closing SJRPP and paying down a significant amount of debt. Despite these efforts, increases are still necessary to maintain the electric system's financial health. As a first step, we are recommending an increase to all energy charges of 0.183 cents per kilowatt hour, which will provide additional revenue for fiscal year 22. When combined with the fuel charge decrease of 0.2 cents per kilowatt hour, a typical residential customer will see no change. And this table illustrates bill impacts for all customer classes, showing all bills will be equal to slightly lower, still resulting in additional base revenue. All right, moving on to the timeline. Staff presented these recommendations at the May Finance and Audit Committee, and today we are requesting the board call to hold a public rate hearing at the August meeting to implement the recommended changes effective October 1st. Staff plans to conduct a cost of service study on the electric system within the next year, and will have further recommendations as a result of those findings. And as a reminder, this is an action item on the agenda to call for a rate hearing in August, and I am happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions of Julie?
I just have a statement. Jay and I spoke about this, that it's a timing issue that we have to submit our budget with what we anticipate our rates to be. It's unfortunate that the rate hearing, because of just the way this happens, can't be done before our budget is finalized, but we have given Jay the latitude to go back to address our budget in the event we find out something during the rate hearings that we need to adjust.
That's correct.
Jay, are you comfortable with lowering the fuel costs, given the fact that, number one, that the fuel is nearly doubled for natural gas over the last few months, and secondly, we put enough into the energy increase, given the delays that we're learning about with Plant Vogtle?
Yes. So the first question on fuel, we have plans in place. We have some natural gas hedging programs, and we have a team that's looking at that. There is pressure on the fuel cost, and so we'll keep an eye on that as we move into next fiscal year. If we have to make adjustments, that does not have to wait until a board action to make adjustments to the fuel cost. Right now, on the long term, we look like we're in good shape because of the Vogtle fuel costs that would come online hopefully next year, although there's that is a pressure point for us. As far as the rate increase, because we are doing a cost of service study that will put us in a better place to get the rates, if there's any significant adjustments to the rate structure, I think that this is the right method, the right steps, and the proper steps to take because of the rate cost of service study that we're doing. I also think that each year when Julie talked about this, she was talking about the electric rates cost of service study. I think as we move into next year, we should analyze and take a look at all of our rates, all of our fees, all of our charges, and be sure that they are in line with where they need to be, and not take a 15-year gap in any of these activities in the future. So because we're going to be cautious, careful, and thoughtful about what we're doing moving forward, I feel comfortable that this recommendation is the right thing for us to do for this fiscal year. And we will keep an eye on it and make adjustments as needed into 22 and 23 fiscal years.
John, I just make one statement, Jay, is, with inflation coming, we're spending $600 million next year on capital projects, and I like Marty's thought process of reviewing this every year and Jay's thought process, but I think we've got to be cognizant of the capital we're going to be spending the next 5 years. Take out Vogtle, which is, something we can't do anything about. But I think we've got to be very, very cognizant of the capital we're going to need to spend both on the water and sewer and the electrical side.
Yes, I agree completely. And we've got to get those numbers right, and we need to execute on accomplishing those, and we've got a team focused on that too. We also, if we review this on a regular basis, I think we'll be prepared to make adjustments as we need to. We don't have to wait until a fiscal year to make adjustments. If something needs to happen mid-year, we will come back and make those recommendations.
And the fuel cost, Chair Baker, will be most likely an ongoing conversation at the Finance and Audit Committee meetings to make sure that we don't wake up and miss the opportunity to pass along a fuel increase in the event that we have one, or pass through savings in the event that we do. I mean, I don't know the cadence of how we've looked at that in the past, but we'll be looking at that on a regular basis.
We'll be looking at it a lot more often than we have in the past.
A lot more.
Thank all of you for those comments. I really do think we need to be on the balls of our feet as we do this. It's wonderful to pass along a neutral effect to the electric bill, but it's also scary given what's going on in the world. And so I think we'll be diligent in protecting our ratepayers, but we've also got to be equally diligent in protecting JEA and making sure that we're passing on costs that we can. It's amazing that we're, despite Vogel, that the expectations for rate increases are in the 1% and 2% going forward in the next 2 or 3 years. It's almost hard to believe, but it's because of the fact that JEA's management team got ahead of it and did those items that Julie outlined to mitigate the impact. And you do us a great service by doing that, and I thank you. Can we get a motion to move this to a public rate hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Julie. Great job in outlining that, and thank you, Jay. Let's go now to the Plant Vogel consultants report. Joe, are you going to bring that to us?
I am, sir. Good morning, Chair Baker and JEA board members. I'm delighted to introduce Bill Kemp. Excuse me. Bill is a director in Roland Berger LP's Chicago office. He has been with Roland Berger since 2019. Prior experience includes consulting work with Innovation Partners, where Bill was a founding partner, Black & Veatch Management Consulting, Precise Power Corporation, and Deloitte Consulting. Key projects include having led the strategic plan development, strategy launch, and cascade meetings for JEA at the direction of former Managing Director and CEO Paul McElroy and our own Vicki Cavey. Mr. Kemp holds a Master of Public Policy degree from the University of California, Berkeley, and an undergraduate BA degree in anthropology and physics from Harvard University. Bill.
Thanks for that warm introduction, Joe, and good morning to Chairman Baker and members of the board. Lots of people scratch their head when they hear anthropology and physics. It was kind of a left brain, right brain program. So I am Bill Kemp with Roland Berger, and many people in the U.S. have not heard of Roland Berger. We're originally a European-based global management consultancy, probably it's the largest management consultancy that's not based in North America, basically. And we are now trying to grow the North American practice. Our North American U.S. practice is the fastest growing part of the firm right now. And when I served JEA, and I would like to join everybody in celebrating Paul's recognition, much deserved, and he did a great service for the organization and for the community, I think. When I served JEA, I was the Innovation Partners, and now the whole innovation team is leading the North American energy practice for Roland Berger. I'm joined virtually today by Mike Granowski of Roland Berger and by 3 members of our Modus ally in this project, Eric Gould, Jim Carter, and Roy Brown. I'll be handling the talking unless I get in hot water, and then I'll bring them in. This project, yeah, that's the right page. This project originated with the request from the board in the late summer of 2020, I believe, for really an update of where would this Project Vogel end up, basically. And we were invited to bid on that RFP. Roland Berger had a lot of experience at nuclear plant operations and nuclear economics, but not as much in nuclear plant construction. So that's why we decided to bring in Modus Strategic Solutions as our subcontractor, and they provided a bunch of the technical expertise. Modus has recently completed a construction management turnaround at another large nuclear plant. It's almost as large as Vogel. And Eric, the project lead for Modus, has been involved at 4 different times with the Vogel plant for various owners or OEMs that had interest, or EPC companies that had interest in the plant. So he's seen a lot about the plant. What we did, stay on that page. What we did was an outside-in assessment based on available information, and there was a lot of data that was made available by Southern and provided to us through MEAG and JEA, but there wasn't a lot of good information. It was hard to find the management insights, basically, from all the data that was out there. So it took a bit of digging. What we did was basically take a look at the last 3 or 4 years of the plant performance. How was the plant performing versus the forecasts that Southern Company had been issuing, and what's called the VCMs, the Vogel Construction Monitoring Report, which they have to do semi-annually to the Georgia PSC. And compare, how was their forecast compared to what actually happened. We also, from our experience, assessed what we thought some of the likely risk would be for nuclear plants that are at this stage of completion in their project life cycle, having been around many of them in the past. And we tested the reasonableness of some of their assumptions about productivity, about schedules, and so forth. One of the things that jumped out in much of the schedule forecast is what we called a bow wave, where in order to show that they can meet schedule, they show that they're suddenly going to reach levels of productivity and progress in the construction that are far beyond what they've ever achieved so far in the project. And these are sort of, they backfit the progress to fit the schedule, unfortunately, and that which made getting the real story a little bit more difficult. We had to do digging. In order to make all the details, and there's a lot of moving parts in a nuclear power plant and the construction management, we thought it would be useful for the board and for the public that would maybe read this report to create some scenarios about what could happen, what we thought was reasonably likely to happen, what the range of those would be, and what the schedule and implicitly the cost implications of those scenarios would be. And finally, we did an on-site visit on May 11th, which Joe Alfano set up with MEAG. 3 members of the Roland Berger Modus team were there in person, as well as Joe. We met with the CFO and the COO of MEAG. We also met with 2 senior project managers, on-site project managers for Southern Nuclear Company. That one was the lead manager for Unit 3, and the other one was the lead manager for Unit 4. And we walked through our report, and the guys on the ground at Vogel for Southern didn't deny those issues that we were raising. Basically, they said, "No, you're kind of raising some of the same concerns that we have." Of course, they put a little bit more of a positive spin on it. They did point out that we had misinterpreted one of their charts. That was about the only criticism they made of our report. But they were basically admitting some of the same issues that we had been raising. And in some of the private conversations we had walking around on the plant tour, they were pretty forthright about their frustration about having little leverage over Bechtel, the EPC company that is running the project, due to the nature of the contract with Bechtel. And Bechtel really is one that's managing the labor and really has the leverage to improve productivity. So what did we find? Next page. What, you went one page too far. Back again. Okay. We found that the estimate at completion, or the total project cost when all is said and done, is highly likely to exceed Georgia Power's current forecast, as stated in the VCM 24, which is issued, that was actually February of 21, not March of 21, and also highly likely to exceed its most recent public pronouncements about what the completion dates would be and the cost implications of that. Why was that? Their project forecasts, looking back at history of time and cost, have consistently erred on the low side. The management of performance metrics to support announced schedules is clouding the forecast for meeting major milestones. I talked about that a bit on the bow wave phenomenon. So it shows unrealistic levels of progress in order to meet the pronounced schedules. Projected huge turnaround in productivity for Unit 4, which is where the most of the remaining costs are, is unsupported by data and extremely unlikely at this stage of the project. I mean, the management practices and the plant culture is pretty strongly embedded at this point. In fact, we saw evidence of that on the plant tour. Large numbers of craft labor were standing around waiting to leave, and it was still 45 minutes before shift end. So that was just one data point, but when we're doing a plant tour, you think they would have organized things a little bit better than that. And then another finding, Unit 4's completion for the last 25% of construction, it's about 75% complete now, will likely mirror Unit 3. That's the best, best way to project this from history. There's no evidence that Unit 4 will improve significantly on Unit 3, with the exception, perhaps, of the rework that has been required on Unit 3 for what they call the cable issue. They had poor quality control on how they installed some of these huge power cables in the plant and needed to go in and pull them all out and space them adequately to meet NRC standards. And that ended up being a long process that added a lot of cost to Unit 3, and they're doing it right on Unit 4 at least. But we've been around nuclear plants where multiple unit projects where there have been strong lessons learned programs to say, okay, what did we learn from this unit that we just completed? How can we transfer those lessons learned over to the unit that is still under construction? And we don't see much evidence of that at the Vogtle plant. There's no strong program to study what went wrong and to change their management practices. They have made some efforts, but it's just not enough to really move the needle compared to some of the other things we've seen in other nuclear plants. And then more generally, for those of you who follow the nuclear plant industry, you know that the nuclear plant construction history clearly shows that schedule and cost increases in the final phases of a project are far more likely than decreases. There's not very few times is there good news in nuclear plant construction, at least in the U.S. And then finally, incentives may not be aligned to minimize cost. Bechtel's contract with Southern is basically a cost-plus contract, and they have very weak incentives to press hard on minimizing costs. Eric, I hope you're listening in. Did I miss anything big there? Got Eric. He must not be there. All right. Okay, so yes, correct. Thank you. So what were the four scenarios? There really are pictures of where Vogtle's final schedule might end up, and they're really all coming from the current forecast, most recent official forecast in VCM 24, using that as a baseline. These scenarios were constructed in April. With the information what was available now, so things have changed a bit, and you can see that the scenario 1 that we had, which is what the VCM 24 forecast is realized, is no longer the case. That's been superseded. Even Southern Company is not saying they're going to do that. Scenario 2 is basically a scenario where existing major issues would be fixed immediately, and there would be no further problems that come up during the testing and run up to operations at either plant. plant, and scenario 3 would be a 6-month delay in Unit 3 and a 4 to 5 month delay in Unit 4. And keeping in mind the current schedule, when I say versus that, is November 22 for at least how we're calculating it here is November 22 for Unit 3 and November 23 for Unit 4. Excuse me, 21 and 22 is what I meant to say. Scenario 4 is similar for Unit 3 because there's not much left to be done on Unit 3, but it adds some additional time to account for additional issues coming up on Unit 4. So it's basically a continuation of past patterns plus some new issues that come up that would push Unit 4's completion date delay beyond 6 months. Now, next page. Sorry. I won't go to walk through all this detail. There's a lot of detail. I'd be happy to answer questions about it if you have it, but we thought it would be useful to ask the question, what would have to happen in order for these scenarios to occur? Scenario 1, as I said, is superseded, so that's not really a relevant question to ask anymore. Scenario 2, everything would have to be basically perfect going forward, fix everything immediately, and not have any future problems. We think that's quite a low probability right now. Scenario 3 versus scenario 4, the major differences there, I won't walk through each line there, but the major differences are scenario 4 would have more testing issues that arise during testing, hot functional testing, which is where they put the hot water and pressure through the units as if it was we're generating power just to test how well the systems operate. That's before they load fuel. And then also the level of rework in Unit 4 and for scenario 4 is more than we were assuming in scenario 3. You to discover some things that had gone wrong you needed to do over again, and you don't get any. So you're spending money to correct something that should have been right in the first place. And then finally, the other major difference is the productivity trends in units 3 and 4. And in scenario 3, we assume that their productivity would be about the same as it has been to date, and that in itself is not very good. They're spending about 1.7 hours for every 1 hour they budgeted over the course of the project so far, as far as their average productivity and performance. For scenario 4, we show that we were assuming a declining productivity rate, mainly because they've lost a large portion of their senior craft labor now over the past few months once Unit 3 was getting closer to being complete, and they're left with a more junior mix to try to complete Unit 4, so there is some reason to worry that productivity may drop off there. Just to step back and get it to a level that's a little bit more bottom line. If you think of it in terms of total unit months of delay, in other words, unit months of delay beyond VCM 24 for Unit 3 plus the units of delay for Unit 4. The current position of Southern Nuclear, as far as the public pronounces, is that would be about 4 total unit months of delay, and that's all in Unit 3, none in Unit 4. If you look at what the Georgia Commission monitor, who is taking a look at it as an outside observer for the Georgia Commission, they're projecting something on the order of 18 total unit months of delay. So that's 4.5 times as much delay. And our scenario 3 is around 10 unit months of delay. Our scenario 4 is 12 plus, depending on what ultimately happens to Unit 4. So we're sort of in between the best case of Southern's projections coming through, and if you want to call it the worst case, but the most pessimistic case that's out there right now, which is the Georgia Commission monitor. And those unit months of delay can be converted fairly readily into dollar impacts for JEA, and Joe is the one that would handle any questions about that. Okay, next slide. So in conclusion, the delays beyond the VCM 24 schedule for each Vogel unit are most likely to be a mix of our scenarios 3 and 4. There'll be more like scenario 3 if Southern's most recent public pronouncements on the schedule are realized or something close to it. More like scenario 4 if the expectations of the Georgia PSC's monitor prove closer to the eventual truth, i.e. there will be more than 6 months delay for each unit. It worries us a little bit that there's not much news around from Southern on the hot functional testing on Unit 3. If it was good news, they'd be out there with it, but it hasn't been any news, and they've been at it for over a month now. So I'm hoping that's not bad news, but we're getting a bit worried about that. And the cost implications of the schedule delays really will depend on the efficiency of resource utilization by Bechtel and Southern. In other words, how much productivity can they get out of their remaining workforce? And then finally, JEA's recent financial disclosure as it relates to Plant Vogel and Project J piece of Plant Vogel is consistent with this report and was referred to in the financial disclosure. JEA intends, as I understand, to continue to work with MEAG to continue monitoring the Vogel completion, and especially when the rebasing or the reforecasting of Unit 4 comes out later this summer, that will be something that should be looked at quite closely. So I'm sorry it's not good news. The Roland Berger Modus team is all pro-nuclear. We've worked with a lot of nuclear plants. We'd like to see it succeed, but we did want to give JEA some solid information for basing its future decisions on. And with that, I'm open to questions from the board.
I mean, this isn't a question, it's a statement, is that, you know, we're in somebody else's car. We're on for the ride. There's not much we can do with this. I mean, as I understand it, talking about trade, I think you have a tremendous amount of traveling electricians, and this thing is getting slower and slower. The one side, Chairman Baker and Jay, I think we should focus on that we can have influence on, and it's a long-term issue, is working with the Department of Energy on grants to figure out if we can reduce this cost working with Southern and MEAG, because I think, you know, there's nothing we can really do about, you know, the ongoing cost. It's in somebody else's hands. I think the one thing we can do is focus on, you know, reducing the cost of this overall. So I think that would be a thought, Jay.
Yes, several things I want to add to what we've talked about and to your point. First of all, the ability for us to control this has been because of the way the agreement is structured and the way we haven't had the ability to control it from the beginning. And we have made really good decisions to mitigate nearly $1 billion worth of cost already without passing that on to our customers. So every decision we make has got the customers in mind. The cost right now is about $2.9 billion, and the delays are not good, I think is an understatement, and they're frustrating. But each month right now is about 0.2%. So the impact to us long-term going forward financially is less driven by the delays that we're facing and more driven by the problems that we've had for a number of years on this project. We have, in the last 6 weeks, re-engaged lobbyists in DC that we had not had on board for some period of time, and we have a current RFP out for grant writers to help support us not only in this but in other activities, and we'll continue to push forward on all of those things to manage cost, to focus on what is best for our customers, and talk to Southern MEAG, because while we don't have any control on this piece of it, we have a control on all the rest of our business, and that is a bigger chunk of this, and we're going to keep on working on that. So I think what the shortest version is that we don't think the numbers that are being reported, they are doing them piecemeal, short at a time. What we're suggesting is that we should expect to have future notices from Southern that will extend that time. And we're going to be prepared as best we can, and we'll continue to point out that when it actually is up and running, the fuel cost will be much lower and will help us in the long run. It doesn't help in the moment, but it'll help us in the long run. So, but yeah, to your point,
No,
yes,
I mean,
lobbyists and grant writers and focused on DOE and continuation.
Yeah, I mean, you think about us, $2.9 billion, you think about Southern Company is probably closer to 15 to 18 billion. And I think, they have a big interest in figuring out how to reduce costs. And, this is what it is today. And I think the DOE is our best answer, and it's a long-term. But I'd sit at the table with MEAG and Southern to figure out how do we, because this is, I think, one of the few nuclear plants being built in this country today. And
the only one that's still under construction, right?
Yeah, but if you believe in climate, I think there's one in Washington State, isn't there? But I think if you believe in climate, this is, a big piece if this is a disaster, it's only going to curtail the amount of nuclear plants being built in this country. So I think that, because I think y'all did a good job capturing costs and where we really are, and we can't move this needle any faster. What we can do is work on reducing the cost of this facility by the government.
And if I can offer an observation, if you're trying to work sort of the legislative angle to make sure that nuclear power is treated fairly and the clean energy policies that may be developed under the current administration, try to see if you can get the plants that haven't entered operation as of the policy promulgation can still qualify for it. There's another revenue source from monetizing some of the carbon credits that might be available also that could figure into the economics depending on whether they're tax credits or direct payments. You'd have to find a tax equity partner if it was the former.
Bill, that was a great study, and I just felt compelled to say this. And when I first read this, I talked to Jay, and fortunately, he talked me from screwing myself from up in the ceiling after reading the results of this. And I'm naive. I'm no expert on this, and so, Jay, thanks for getting me smart on the realities of nuclear power plants. But I just got to say, I'm appalled at what appears to be lack of accountability, program manager, quality control, just all those things that go in any project where normally folks have a sense of, trying to improve lessons learned and clearly seeing what's going wrong and nothing goes perfect. But I just got to say, I'm just, and I'm sure everybody is the same thing, just frustrated that it appears that the folks who can affect to try and get, and this won't get back on track, I got it, but at least not to continue digging the hole deeper. Where's the urgency? Who's showing accountability? Those who are accountable, do they really care, or are they just, hey, that's the way it is, and that's the way it's going to be? And I know I'm overstating it, and I wish I could give a recommendation instead of just bitch about what's wrong with this thing, but I'm at a loss on this, quite frankly. And I just hope, my concern is once this finally gets done, geez, I hope this thing is actually up and running responsibly, and those who are in charge, no kidding, are doing the right things and not going on with what appears to be just sort of lackadaisical subpar performance. Now, maybe I have it all wrong, but I felt like I have to say this.
No, Southern's a good operator. I mean, once it gets into operation, I don't think you should worry about it operating reliably and efficiently. They kind of lost a lot of their contractual leverage over the controlling costs due to the parade of different EPC companies that came in, Toshiba's bankruptcy, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I also think it's important to restate and remind that our contract with MEAG was contentious in the over the past couple of years, but in large part because of Paul and the board's effort in the last year, we are in a good place with them. We have continued ongoing discussions with MEAG regularly, and it is very positive. This is not going to have a dramatic impact on our customers in the short run because of the changes that we're making with rates that in part of it is because of this are being offset by the fuel cost adjustments. And so even though this is a negative report, we've taken lots of effort, made lots of effort to mitigate this, so our customers are still the focus, and we will we'll be prepared to manage that as best we can and keep on communicating with you all and the public because it's part of what we have to do is to keep the impacts on negative things as little as possible on our customers.
The one thing that was added here today, Jay, is these carbon credits, and I don't fully understand them, but what I'm hearing is they're going to be more and more important over time, and I think we should have an understanding of what that is. Yeah, I mean, that would be something that is new in my mind.
Yeah, I was going to ask what other remedies we have. We know where we are. Thank you. This was a very, you said we got in a car, Bobby. I feel like I got.
Car ride where we are.
I feel like I was on a roller coaster, and I don't like roller coasters. So, what other remedies do we have? I mean, is there anything else? We've got the carbon credits. We've got grants. Is there anything else that could be out there?
We need to study that piece and figure out what types of opportunities there are and how that impacts the larger. But I think the real place that we have to focus is doing the things that we clearly have control over, do them well. That's the business excellence part of what we're working on. We need to manage our debt, our rates, and our operational excellence and focus on that. That doesn't mean we won't look at all these things. We'll look at DOE, we'll look at grants, we'll look at, and in fact, I'll talk to Jody this morning. The nuclear, the discussion around nuclear is a big topic at the APPA conference right now. There's lots of interest in this going forward because of the carbon side of this. There's new reports this week about work on small modular reactors. So the industry will also help us. And so we'll be engaged in all of those areas and focus where we can control, whether it's carbon or the way we handle our debt or whatever piece we can control within this part of the business. And more broadly, look at how we're managing all of the other things to be able to mitigate that. Again, I was excited about the slide that was in Julie's presentation that talked about the $900 million plus the $90 million of fuel cost that we made decisions to help offset. So when we say we don't have any control over it, we don't have any control over this slice, but we did lots of other things, and we'll continue to do that and make a difference. But yeah,
I'll make one other statement. Is I give John and Jay a lot of credit, and Paul before, of changing an adversarial relationship with MEAG and Southern Company into one that's a partnership of, when bad things happen, you can fight or you can figure out how to work together. And I give Jay and John a lot of credit for going up there and seeing where we are and, being at the table and working with these guys. So, I think we'll work through it. It's not going to be fun, but we are partners versus adversarials. And I give them a lot of credit for that.
You just don't have much leverage over Southern. I mean, you obviously work well with MEAG, but there are things Southern could do to try to manage the project. But as to my understanding, that they're not that open to suggestions from because they've got their own plans as far as how to bring the units into operation and their goals for getting into rate base. Our MODIS team has plenty of ideas, but JEA is not in a very strong position to to influence Southern as far as changing its management practices. And then, Jay, you mentioned the modular nukes. Roland Berger is quite active in that field. We've advised the most advanced small nuclear company on its commercialization plans and are enthusiastically supporting that. I think that's probably the future of nukes as opposed to the big pressurized water reactors.
We appreciate the effort that our team is doing to keep this up, and happy to answer any more questions if you've got any.
Jay, this is John. I listened to Bill's report. It sounds like scenario 4 is getting more and more likely than scenario 3. I mean, if plant 4 is 75% done, we're not going to be close to being ready by December 22. And I just want to make sure, I had the pleasure of reading the disclosure reports from the new bond thing over the weekend, and I would just encourage you and Joe to go back through the disclosures and make sure that we are painting a picture that is consistent with this report.
Yes, thank you. We will do that. We also, I think it's important that this report was actually completed in time for the last board meeting, but we had not met with MEAG, and in order to continue that good relationship, we met with MEAG, and that's how we got to this date. But we will review that to make sure that we're consistent with what we're saying here, and that it's appropriate. Thank you for that.
Okay, any other questions? Let's move on to policy reviews and delegation of authority. Jody?
Good morning, Chair Baker and other board members. Jody Brooks, Chief Administrative Officer for JEA. And I think I've got a little bit easier item to present versus a nuclear power plant construction timeline that was just presented. As you know, the charter allows for the board to delegate certain responsibilities to other officers and employees, Section 2104 of the JEA charter. There's also a board policy that requires the board to establish board management delegation to specify how powers are delegated and provide clarity on the CEO's role and authority. In March of 1977, the board approved the delegation of authority policy that was last revised in May of 2013. There's a need now to go back and update that delegation policy and with current information, and it put some clarity around what matters are reserved to the board. There's a revised delegation policy in your packet of information for your consideration today. The major change in it is really identifying those matters that are reserved specifically to the board. And those are listed here on the slide, and I can hit the high points on these. One of the biggest ones is really the JEA matters that require the city council review and approval, including the JEA annual budget. There's a handful of items that you'll see in the charter that talks about governing body. Anytime the city charter or JEA's charter says governing body, that's something that can't be delegated away. So the establishments of rates, assessments, fees, and charges for retail services, contracts, agreements, and financial instruments that exceed $50 million, approval of changes to an approved annual budget that exceeds $5 million, settlement of litigation matters of $150,000. Most of these numbers that I'm talking about have already been delegated in some other form of instrument, and so these numbers aren't being revised. They're just to clarify that if any of these happen, that they come back before the board. Anything dealing with the managing director and CEO, the engagement, performance, and review, the annual disclosure reports that this board just recently approved on the electric, water, wastewater, and DES, and then implementation or changes to voluntary giving programs like the Neighbor to Neighbor program. And then any other matters that are in the city charter, including our Article 21 charter that cannot be delegated. Those are things like the performance plans have to go before this board that are void. It even says in our charter that it doesn't get board approval, it's void. And then any other matters with the potential to have a material impact on the reputation of this organization. And so, Mr. Chair, if there's no questions, I'd like for the board to entertain a motion to approve this revised delegation of authority policy.
Move it.
Can we, is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Jody, is this really the first time we've amended this policy since 2013?
Since 2013, through the chair to Member Lanahan, in 2018, there was lots of dialogue and discussion about trying to revise the policy in the 2018 timeframe. Did a lot of information gathering and preparing a draft of the proposal to update it in 2018. The board never approved it in 2018. And so as of right now, the last time it was officially approved by this board was 2013.
But I will say, Jody, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the authorities here, we actually did incorporate with the board policy manual in concert with the Article 21 too. So it's a different way of doing it, but I'm just looking, every one of these, I'm pretty sure is already incorporated into the board policy manual.
Yeah, I thought I'd seen.
Yeah.
I thought I'd seen it somewhere. I just would love for us to dig a little deeper into our documents to make sure there's nothing else that hadn't been sitting out there since 2013 to see if we need to approve it. And I really do appreciate the red line versions of the resolution that are in our packages for the first time. I think there was a red line of the bond document. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Jody, for the red line document. Makes it easier for me to follow.
Yeah, and one of the things, too, that you'll notice on this policy that the chief administrative officer is now the proud owner of this policy, and we are in the process of reviewing all of our variety of policies to make sure that they are up to date and current. And so if there's other ones that we're seeing, some of them don't need board approval, but the ones that do need board approval, we'll bring back to your attention in a red line version.
Great, thank you.
Okay, did we vote on this?
No.
Not yet.
No, sir.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you, Jody.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any old or other new business or open discussion that needs to be taking place? There is no chair's report. Our next board meeting is July 27, 2021 at the West Side Service Center. We're really looking forward to getting out to some of the facilities and having our board meetings there. It's not that easy pursuant to the rules for us to do that, but we're looking forward to it. And I think the strategic plan that we will review will be very productive and thought-provoking. Is there anything else to come before the board? Hearing not, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Jay, do you need me to stay on?
I always welcome you to stay as long as you want. If you would like for me to handle the media today, I can do that meeting. And you.
I would love that.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day.
Happily deferred.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.